Good evening. I wanted to talk to you folks tonight about a subject that I was thinking about the other day and I decided to do some research on, and it turns out it's really quite fascinating and in a lot of ways makes a lot of sense. Uh, if you guys are familiar with the concept of genetic memory, which is where you don't specifically have a memory of something, but through many thousands of years, tens of thousands of years of our ancestors encountering something large, something scary, or a certain situation, that we have something built into us, something deep in the back of our brain, something in our genetic makeup on how to do these things. This is exhibited quite a bit in the wild when animals are able to return to a certain area or go to a certain area that they've never been before, or exhibit behavior on how to do things. You know, animals that give birth, animals that know how to hunt, animals that know how to swim that have never swam before. It's the same thing in humans. We exhibit a lot of this. There's just some people call it instinct. I think a more technical term, like we're saying, is like a genetic memory. And I think this does pertain to Sasquatch. So if we take a look at North America and we take a look at our biology and things that we would have a hard time going up against. Now, what makes humans the most dominant species on the planet is our brains, our creativity, our teamwork, our ability to make weapons and tools and strategize versus brute force and strength and speed. So when we come across a very large bear or a very large mountain lion, a black bear, a grizzly bear here in North America, a pack of wolves even, or if we're in Africa with lions and leopards and a lot of other things, even venomous snakes to a certain point, but really just talking about large apex predators, ones that will actively predate, hunt, and kill us and not think anything of it, because that's what they do. They're predators. They need to eat. They need to survive. And we look at sharks in the ocean. You look at all over the world, and we're not exactly top of the food chain. We are when we are able to be creative and work together, but there's something in our DNA. And when it comes to Sasquatch and it comes to Dogman and some of the other varieties of Bigfoot, that it can be a lot more ferocious. These things are reported all over the entire world. All sorts of strange cryptid and other monstrous looking creatures are reported all over the world. And as someone who's had close encounters with bears before, I've been fairly close to mountain lions. It's certainly startling. It gets your adrenaline pumping. But it's nothing compared to being anywhere near a Sasquatch, because monsters aren't supposed to be real. Not that Bigfoot is a monster per se, but we're supposed to be, technologically advanced. We're supposed to be the smartest species on the planet. We're supposed to have it all figured out. We're humans. We've gone everywhere and we've seen everything. We've discovered there is to discover. Let's move on. Bigfoot can't exist. Well, I believe it does. I've had several close encounters, and tens of thousands of people across the United States have close encounters with these things every year. And when it comes to the genetic memory, I think we've had long battles with these things. I think we've shared many of woods all across the entire world with these things in many different habitats. There are some native traditions of these things being kind of friendly, but most of them seem to be somewhat indifferent, and a lot of them actually seem to be quite the opposite, as you don't go out at night and they'll get you, like we discussed in the Hairy Man video, or downright violent. Sometimes you're trading with them, but they always command a lot of respect, as there's something, even if you're a big powerful dude, 6'5", 300 pounds, you're puny, you're nothing compared to a Sasquatch. And I think as part of the genetic memories, not all that long ago, relative to how long we've been walking the earth, we weren't the only human species out there. We shared this land and a lot of other lands across the world with Neanderthals. And I'm sure we also faced Neanderthal human hybrids, and I'm sure a certain number of these were very vicious. A certain number of these were cannibals. There's been fossil evidence of cannibalism. And when it comes to fighting big hairy beasts, there were a lot bigger beasts back then, a lot larger bears, the North American lion, for instance, and cave bears, short-nosed bears, and we had to fight these things tooth and nail. And it was bred into us for thousands of years. It was either kill or be killed. It was be smarter, be stronger, work together, and we didn't always win. I think we slept in a lot of fear, and I think we always had a lot of problems with these things. And I think with Bigfoot is no exception, especially being a competitive hominid species. Because when we're out in the woods with the bear, you can bring firearms, you can bring pepper spray. You know you're smarter than the bear. You know you have more technological advantage, and you can, outwit them, so to speak. You can't win maybe in a pure physical brawl, but you can be dominant over the bear most of the time. Bigfoots, though, being as incredibly intelligent, cunning creature, as being a competitive hominid species that may be near our intelligence, in some ways smarter than us, but be complete masters of their environment, and to be incredibly huge and imposing and so incredibly strong, it's very scary. All this blend together, and I think there is a component of genetic memory. Like I said, when we're not the only hominids around, I think this goes very back and strikes to a very primal fear. I also thought it's fascinating that in a lot of traditional hunting, where the Native Americans and even in Europe, when they would try to sneak up on prey, they would dress up as a wolf or a coyote, the Native Americans, or in Europe, they would have a false horse. They'd have guys in a horse costume because they could get really close to deer because it was on four legs. And the same thing with the natives. They can hunt the bison. They could get really close with them if they covered themselves in wolf skins and walked around on all four. But if they stood up upright, it sounded the alarm. Now, is this from modern Homo sapiens hunting them? I suppose it's also from Neanderthals, and I suppose it's also probably is from Sasquatch and other died-out hominid species out there. The creatures in the woods seem to respond differently to something on two legs and four legs. And as much as man has had an impact, I think it's our forebears, our forefathers, our distant cousins, even different species of our line. And I think this all contributes to why Bigfoot is so scary, because I think we are absolutely part of that as well. And it just proves that I think there's something just very primordial, very scary, because I think, also the physicality of these things, being so big, 8, 9, 10, 12 feet tall. And it doesn't always end violent. These things aren't always violent towards us. There's lots of stories of kindness. And I'm not saying they're bloodthirsty killers, just how bears aren't necessarily bloodthirsty killers, just like wolves aren't necessarily bloodthirsty killers either. But there's just something inherently scary but fascinating. Most things that are scary are fascinating, why people love sharks so much and people love lions and wolves and bears and all that stuff, because they're exciting. Predators are cool. When you get into other creatures, cryptids or monsters or however you want to describe these things, especially like the dog man, I think you get in a whole nother realm of scary, because I think you have a lot of we fear other upright walking creatures. And then I think there's also a primordial fear of wolves that we have. And I think in our human mind, since we've tamed the dog from wolves, we've kind of separated our dogs from our wolves, and that's why wolves are mysterious, because wolves can be misunderstood, they can be frightening, they can be scary, but they can also be very fascinating and very beautiful. And I think the dog man kind of conjoins all those fears of teeth and claws and something upright and something hairy and really something that's not supposed to be there. When you see a Bigfoot, you're like, I didn't know they were real. I didn't know there was another upright walking ape species besides ourselves on this earth. This is very scary. But when you get to a dog man, it even accelerates that, because there's no fossil record, there's no inclusions. An upright walking dog really isn't supposed to exist. So I think there's a lot of fear built into us from these things, and I think it strikes us to our very core. And I think when you're close to these creatures, especially when you start figuring out that there's ones that are primarily carnivorous, like the Wendigo varieties and the Gugwe varieties of Sasquatch that have long claws, long teeth, that take out bears and other large mammals with no problem, can be completely ferocious. Albeit these creatures are somewhat rare, they are out there, people do see them, and it makes me seem regular Bigfoot's a lot more tame, to be quite honest. Anyway, this was just an interesting thought I wanted to throw out there. Let me know what you guys think in the comment. Do you think there's some kind of inherent built-in fear that we have of Bigfoot and these other cryptid creatures and other things that walk in the woods that are upright? Also, if you like what you see, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps out the channel. And please stay on your toe and stay safe in the woods, folks.